Action stations.
Greetings, folks. AnIolairGhorm here with another World of Warships Division replay, this time featuring Tier 10 vessels with Jimijaz in the Royal Navy destroyer HMS Daring, Lynn Wilkie in the German heavy cruiser Hindenburg, and myself in the German battleship Kurfürst. We are in a domination match on Okinawa. The ship classes are pretty evenly spread with no aircraft carriers. And Jim's build in the Daring focuses on being a destroyer hunter-killer and cap contester with both the main battery modification 3 and slot 6, as well as radio location. Lynn Wilkie's build in the Hindenburg is sort of a tank build, as well as taking the range modification in slot 6 to give him better operational range of his main artillery, and he takes the hydroacoustic search special upgrade, which he's definitely going to take advantage of during this battle. And then my build in the Kurfürst is a blend between secondaries and a tank build with some extra concealment, and I do use the unique upgrade for the Kurfürst. Now, I have been quite delinquent in bringing this game to the channel. We actually played this game, I think, the day before 0.8.0 came out, and so I owe the team an apology for the delay in getting this out, especially Lynn, because he's kind of the star of the show, and he has definitely looked forward to seeing this replay for some time. So we're going to start the replay here with Jimijaz as he moves into the Bravo cap, and the Bravo cap is being contested, and Jimijaz can tell, obviously, based on the radio location, that he's got an opposing destroyer that's on this side of the islands, and he's going to point his bow towards the exit so that he can get out if he gets radared, but also he's got an angle to be able to avoid taking torpedoes if they're sent on him. He isn't radio located, so he knows that the destroyer that's here is not radio locating him. But he does have both myself and Lynn Wilkie directly behind him, and so they, if there are torpedoes, they're likely being sent at me and Lynn, and therefore Jim is going to kind of be in the way. Now, looking at the tactical situation, we have a little bit of a problem brewing already with our allied Haragumo abandoning the Alpha Cap. The Alpha Cap is being contested. I think that we had detected an opposing Cleveland that was approaching the Alpha Cap, and so I think the Haragumo wanted to get out and not run the risk of being radared and being focused very early. Jim has been backing up here to try to get some eyes on the opposing destroyer that is here, which is the Grozovoy, who had sent torpedoes. And Jim's going to get into a little bit of a gun battle here briefly. He is going to pop his smoke. The smoke screens on the British destroyers last very short time. They're basically, sort of get me out of trouble smoke and not really designed to camp in and sort of fire from concealment for any extended or even short periods of time. The torpedo spread that the Grozovoy sent in the direction of Jim. Actually, one of those torpedoes did hit me in the Kurfürst, but it didn't do too much damage. Now, again, the problem that we have right now is that the Alpha Cap has been abandoned, and we don't have visibility on the ships that have moved into Alpha. And so Jim, Lynn, and I are going to realize that we need to turn around here. And then we're now transitioned to Lynn's perspective in the Hindenburg, as we are going to move towards the Alpha Cap, because we have really, frankly, enough representation at both Bravo and Charlie to be able to keep things spotted. But we have to be able to defend the flank at Alpha. There is an allied Musashi that you can see on Lynn's port side that's coming under a lot of sustained fire from at least two cruisers, a Zhao and a Cleveland, that are positioned near Alpha, and they are able to fire largely from concealment, or most of the time from concealment. And the Musashi, the allied Musashi that is on the north side of Bravo, has kind of put himself into a crossfire situation because normally he would be able to bow tank opposing ships that are on the south side of Bravo. But he is basically unprotected from these opposing cruisers that are able to put fire on him. And we're going to transition to my perspective in the Großer Kurfürst is I'm going to start heading north as well here shortly. And we're going to see just how quickly this, you can see just how quickly that Musashi's health has disappeared. He's already down to probably about a quarter of his health. Here we do move to my position or perspective in the Großer Kurfürst, and I am going to call out to this Musashi that he really needs to be drawing back because he basically is, frankly, very overextended, and like I said, he's put himself into a crossfire. Now, we're waiting for Jim to get turned around. Jim is still on the the east side of Bravo, and he will be moving up here. And what we're looking to do now is for Lynn and myself to get into a flanking position where we can try to unseat these two cruisers that did move to Alpha and be able to try to take the Alpha cap and establish some positions so that the opposing team doesn't have this flanking position at Alpha. We do hold both Bravo and Charlie, which is good, and we do have, we actually have a deficit right now because the opposing team did take cap before we did, and they are now contesting the Charlie cap, so presumably one of the opposing destroyers has moved into Charlie. Transition back to Lynn's perspective in the Hindenburg as he's approaching this broadside Zao, and he is using his hydroacoustic search. He did detect the two sets of torpedoes that the Zao has sent from his port side, and he did not expect to run into the opposing Akizuki. He had AP loaded here, expecting to be able to get some broadside shots in on the opposing Zao. He knows that he's relatively safe now from being cross-torped by the Zao and the Akizuki, but he was not expecting to run into the destroyer as well. And so he's going to focus on the destroyer and kind of take things a little bit slowly here and not expose himself to crossfire from the Zao. Zao does have very strong AP. Most people recognize it for its very potent HE shells, but the Zao's AP shells are not to be underestimated, and Lin does not want to put himself into a crossfire taking AP broadside shots from the Zao. So he's going to go nose in on the Zao. He's going to get one more salvo out here on the Akizuki, and he's going to sink the Akizuki, claiming first blood for our team. So we've now unseated the destroyer that was up here at Alpha, and Lin is going to chase the Zao here out of the Alpha cap. Again, he has to be careful here because the Zao did send his torpedoes from his port side, but he has, as far as we know, not sent torpedoes from his starboard side, which is now the side that's facing Lin. So Lin is going to approach this quite cautiously. The Zao has activated his hydroacoustic search so that he's able to track Lin as Lin is coming around this island. Lin is also starting to take some fire from the opposing Cleveland, and so he's going to slow here and ideally not take any torpedoes from the Zao. And here comes one set of torpedoes, and unfortunately he slows a tad too late, and he is going to take one right on the tip of his bow for flooding, and he's going to damage control that. He is going to avoid the other set. He's going to back up here so that he can stay out of firing range, and he's going to need to take a little bit of a break since he did take a little bit of a beating there, and get another repair party in. Switch to my perspective in the Großer Kurfürst. Going to get some shots here in on these opposing cruisers, both the Cleveland and the Zao. The Zao has now come out broadside to me and has come into my secondary range, so I'm going to set my secondaries on him. And between my secondaries and my primaries, I'm going to be able to wear him down almost to nothing here pretty quickly. I had made the mistake of activating my hydroacoustic search. It's just kind of a habit I have when I'm running into or engaging a ship that has torpedoes, but to be fair to Lin, he did advise me that the Zao had committed torps on that starboard side, and I should not have needed to activate my hydroacoustic search. We've switched back to Lin's perspective in the Hindenburg as he gets the final shot in on the Zao and takes the Zao down for his second kill, and now we're focused on getting this Cleveland out of the way. So we have successfully executed what we wanted to, which was to unseat the opposing team's position at Alpha. We've also taken the Alpha cap from the opposing team, but the opposing team has moved into Bravo, and they're now contesting that cap as well. The opposing team has a very strong presence on the sort of the southwest side of Charlie. In fact, they should be able to overwhelm us here at that cap, but so far they have yet to push in. Lynn is trying to kite out here and try to get a last few shots in on this Cleveland, try to get the Cleveland down. There he sets another fire, which I believe gets damage controlled almost immediately. And we're a little bit anxious here to get that cruiser down just to unseat another ship or sink another ship, since our team is right now, we're kind of even. Well, we are now even on ships, but it would be good to get this low health ship out of the way as well. Going to move to my perspective in the Kurfürst as this Cleveland is just about to go off concealment. I get one more salvo out from my rear turrets, and it is going to be enough, and I'm going to get one penetrating hit on the Cleveland and sink the cruiser for my first kill of the game. Do have a very low health Minotaur, and we'll come back to him shortly. Switch to Jim's view. We haven't been with Jim for a little bit. He came back to Bravo once we knew we had Alpha secured, and he almost immediately ran into an opposing Fletcher and was able to sink the Fletcher in Bravo, and he's now going to move into Bravo and help defend this cap. Do have an opposing Hone that's moving into the Bravo cap as well. This Hone actually, and frankly in my opinion, is overextended. He should be farther back, and he's quite healthy here. So Jim is going to send out a set of torpedoes, and he's followed almost immediately behind Lynn's, whose perspective we now switch to. Lynn is going to move into Bravo as well to help defend this cap. He's going to get his torpedoes away to provide some area denial. There's the opposing Grozovoy, and Lynn's going to get a couple more salvos off. But then we switch to my perspective in the Kurfürst, where I've now sent a salvo out on this opposing Hone and Bravo, and I'm going to sink the Hone for my second kill of the game. And I'm going to move back down to Bravo as well. I am, frankly, quite far behind from where I really should be. I need to be closer to be able to accept shots from the opposing team, and I'm going to move into Bravo eventually to help try to contain the opposing team that has now taken Charlie and is now moving in force through Charlie, and is going to start putting fire on these allied ships that are on the east side of Bravo. We've now come to Jim's perspective in the Daring to try to get some visibility on this low health Minotaur. Switch to Lynn's perspective in the Hindenburg. He sends a salvo out, and naturally he gets a Citadel hit for a measly, I don't know, maybe 1,000 hit points, if even that, on the Minotaur, but at least we were able to sink that cruiser. We have a one ship advantage. We have a one cap advantage, but the opposing team is being very focused in their efforts to stay together and concentrate fire. Our team is a little more spread out. We've switched to my perspective in the Kurfürst. So my job right now, being the only battleship remaining on our team, is, and I've got a lot of health remaining, I need to start absorbing shots for the team. And so I'm going to move into Bravo, and as Lynn kind of pointed out in our sort of retrospective view of the battle and how things went, I'm going to kind of just shove my giant German sausage in here and basically be a giant hit point pinata for the opposing team, as well as a giant distraction. And this is going to allow Lynn and Jim, who are on the west side of Bravo, to be able to put in flanking fire, and hopefully our allied ships that are on the east side of Bravo to be able to concentrate on opposing ships as well that are moving up into the Bravo cap from Charlie. Switch to Jim's perspective, where he's going to send in some flanking torpedoes here on these opposing battleships, the Kurfürst and the Musashi. And there's also a Yamato that's quite low in health. Come back to my perspective in the Kurfürst is I'm going to get some shots in here on the Musashi and get some secondaries going. Part of the reason I parked here is that there was an opposing destroyer that I was afraid had sent torpedoes through the gap, and so I deliberately kind of beached here. And as it turns out, that you can see the destroyer, he's on the sort of the northeast side of the Bravo cap. And one of the things that Lynn and I were concerned about, and Jim as well, is that he was going to come up and try to flank me and get torpedoes in on my port side. We switch back to Jim's perspective briefly in the Daring, as he does get a couple of torpedoes, including some with flooding, on the opposing Musashi that's moving up into the Bravo cap. And then he gets eyes on the opposing Stalingrad, who is very low health, down to about 4,000 hit points. And Jim is making the call here to put some fire on this Stalingrad and look to try to get the Stalingrad down as quickly as he can. He sets the fire on the Stalingrad, which he obviously needs to immediately extinguish because he's low in health. And Jim is going to keep the fire up here with, and then he sets another fire, and the Stalingrad is doomed. And Jim is able to take down the Stalingrad. So Jim is now going to move toward the Charlie cap to contest it and take it as some insurance. Switch back to my perspective, where I'm now facing off against the Kurfürst and the Musashi. Now, again, my job here is basically to be a giant distraction for these ships, so that they're focusing on me, and that allows my allies to focus their fire. Now, I make a misplay here. What I should have done, and for most people, they probably have already seen the misplay, I should have just rammed the Grosser Kurfürst, because he had much more health than I did, and I think I just got kind of greedy and was hoping I could delete the Musashi in a drive-by, but the Kurfürst got a very good salvo off on me just as he was passing me, and then the Musashi is able to sink me. So that was kind of a misplay on my part, but at the same time, I did significantly delay the opposing team's chances, or at least the time they needed to be able to take the Bravo cap. Now, we've come back to Lynn's perspective because right now he's one of very few ships that the opposing team is going to be firing on. We do have a Zhao. In fact, the Zhao was just sunk by the Musashi. So Lynn is basically the only ship on our team that the opposing team can see. And therefore, they're all going to be focusing on him. And Lynn's perspective, Lynn has been doing a lot of damage farming while I had moved myself in the Kurfürst into Bravo. And so you may have noticed that he had racked up over 150,000 in damage already. And now we've come to Jim's perspective in the Daring, as he's moved into Charlie and is going to take the Charlie cap. Now, you'll notice there is, or was, the last known position of the opposing Grozovoy that was on the sort of the east-northeast side of Bravo, and Jim is anticipating that the Grozovoy is coming down to try to intercept him to prevent Jim from taking the Charlie cap. And so Jim is waiting for his radio location to switch from pointing at the opposing ships that are in Bravo to now pointing to what he now expects is the Grozovoy that is coming to intercept him at Charlie. So Jim, at this point, I don't know if we knew how healthy the Grozovoy is, but Jim is able to secure the Charlie cap. Jim is changing direction here in order to get some angle and also try to sort of vary speed and direction in case torpedoes have been sent. And he is going to detect the Grozovoy here in just a moment. Oh, by the way, we also did lose the last of our other destroyers, so it is only Jim and Lynn at this point. Lynn is trying to delay any capture of the Alpha capture point by the opposing team, and is basically having to kite out. Jim has now engaged the opposing Grozovoy. He does have a slight health advantage. He definitely has the rate of fire advantage over the Grozovoy, and there he's able to get quite a few salvos in and is able to sink the Grozovoy. He drops into some smoke here to make sure that he tries to stay in some concealment as quickly as possible in case one of the other opposing ships was able to fire on Jim in order to avoid him being sunk. We now switch back to Lynn's perspective at the Hindenburg. He's doing something that I know a lot of people kind of oppose, is sort of this border riding. It can be very difficult to try to hit a ship and judge their speed and direction when they're riding on the border. But at this point, this is the best thing that he can do in order to avoid taking shots. Now, frankly, at this point, now that the opposing Grozovoy has been sunk, we have enough of a point lead with only, 15 seconds remaining. Lynn doesn't really need to be firing at this point, although I think he was just trying to get some extra damage in. There are gonna be a few more salvos coming in here. He does take a pretty good shot there from the Kurfürst on the opposing team, but we are going to win here with time expiring on points. So a really close match, something that we almost let get away from us. Lynn and Jim were definitely the stars of the game, being top 2 XP. I did okay, not great, but Lynn seemed to feel that my role in terms of, like I said, sticking my giant German sausage in the middle of Bravo to act as a giant distraction was crucial to helping to secure the win. So in any case, I hope you enjoyed the replay and the commentary. I'll leave the results up, obviously, for all of the ships, so feel free to peruse at your leisure. And with that, we hope to see you out there, and we wish you happy sailing.